This is a story about returning to a place never visited. A story about escaping, discovering, and re-encountering. A trip in search of impossible memories. It is above all an African story, the geography of eternally missing peoples.
My name is Hamidu Omar. I am 40 years old and I am of Peul origin. I was born in Mauritania. The Peul have traditionally been nomadic shepherds that are found throughout Western Africa. My parents had already settled down when I was born, but they told me about some Peul people in Niger and who have always maintained our culture alive. They are known as the Uodabe people. I once saw an Uodabe woman who visited my home. Since then, I've dreamed about coming to Niger in order to get to know them. Some years ago, I emigrated to Spain, where I currently live. I have done well for myself, thus making my dream come true.
If there was a place in Africa to flee from, it would be from the cities. But Niamey is the exception, but not because it is a beautiful or pleasant city. What sub-Saharan African capital deserves enjoying adjectives like those? Niamey's charm lies in its image as a rural capital. No one has immigrated from the country to the city, but instead, they have taken the country to the city. No more than 5% of the total population lives in Niamey, and the remaining 20% of the people are nomadic. But this does not mean that the city does not have modern buildings. The exploitation of uranium during the 1970s provoked building fever, which resulted in the construction of banks and ministries with a dubious architectonic taste, which modernity has allotted these places. Uranium became outdated in the West in the 1980s, and consequently, this building impulse abruptly stopped.
When I made the decision to emigrate to Europe, I promised myself that someday I would return to Africa, but as a tourist. When I was young, I saw how white people came to my country for tourism, and I never understood what was so interesting about going around a place without really doing anything. Now, since I work 14 hours a day, I understand what they were doing. It makes you feel that you are free, although it only lasts just a few weeks.
My name is Mama Monde. I am 34 years old. I have 3 wives and 13 children. I am in Uodabe Peul from Niger. 2 of my wives, my brothers and sisters, and also my parents live in the countryside with the animals. I spend part of the year living a nomadic life with my family, and the rest of the time here in Niamey, where I run the Nomadic Shepherds Association of Niger. In Chintabaraden, which is where my family lives, I have some cows, sheep, donkeys, and a number of camels. I like to stay here in the city, But I also miss the country, especially now during the rainy season, when great celebrations take place.
Your Uncle Ahmed gave this letter to me in Nouakchott. He cannot come to the feast this year, but he sends his best wishes to you.
Thank you. Thank you. We already knew you were coming and are very happy. In the country, everyone is waiting for you. It's going to be a great feast, the best in years. This year it has rained a lot, more than ever. Crops have been good, and the animals have given very good milk. My own cows have given birth to half a dozen calves. You are coming to the countryside at the best time of the year. I'm very happy that you've come.
What wonderful news. I look forward to starting our trip.
Me too. We'll leave in a couple of days. I must go to the market to pick up some clothes for the feast. And I also want you to see my house in Niamey. After that, we'll go to the country.
In Niamey, modernity is made up of islands that transform it into something somewhat less than a city, but somewhat more than a dusty village. The dirt roads, with some asphalt, are shared equally by cars, goats, men, and camels alike. From the Kennedy Bridge, you often can see groups of camels that get lost as they head for the city center. The devastating drought during the 1980s hit Niger like no other country in the area, killing more than half of the livestock and plunging it into an economic crisis from which it is still not recovered. For the first time in history, the Niger River stopped flowing through Niamey. A river that strongly flows today disappeared as if it was never going to return again.
Joni ni kalen ni tan kon al dominani Hamidu ko sam tam la jara kadam hajito sugabe amin ko biradani wala ka biradam be jarata mi jarata yardi aride min dum heji am dum jarata wadde be dugol ngol dum a nyamata odo yo sasi biya mim yara odo moji sa yido gadi feccen ayida o yido o rokuma ko nem ko kewi pour no wurda magasin ma wallahi jawdi ndi no wori magasin am emi don Hamidu mi wadi ledde a andi to sembe haay hunde fu neddo golda min odo moja.
Life takes place in the street. They sleep, chat, and even eat in the street. There's no space for private life in Africa, and in that aspect, Niamey is one of the most African capitals of the continent.